In the land of Aman, power was not a gift from the heavens or an authority passed down through lineage. It was a kingdom ruled by the strongest warlords who had conquered in war and is feared by the people. In this vast land, leadership belonged to the one who survived war, who stood unbroken when others fell. The bravest warrior did not inherit power, he took it. This was a land that respected force and feared judgment. It was a land where punishment came not from law, but from blood. It was in this kind of kingdom that the first story of the Punisher was recorded. This is the story of how a man's love for his soil turned into a thirst that would burn a kingdom to ash.
Kondi was a man of the earth. In the vast kingdom of Aman, where men fought for glory, Kondi sought only the silence of the forest. He was one of the great hunters the people had ever known. He could read the broken grass where a leopard had stepped and hear the heartbeat of a hidden deer through the thickest brush. Other hunters stayed in the clearings, but Kondi walked deeper into forests hunting games that were impossible to hunt. Because of his skill, he became a man of great respect and wealth. Kondi had 7 sons, and owned many green hills and fertile valleys, among which was his ancestral land. This was a sacred land passed down through 100 generations. Beneath its red soil lay the bones of his fathers and the spirits of his grandfathers. Kondi inherited the land from his father, and he was meant to pass it down to his eldest son. He expected that one day, when his time came, his sons would lay him to rest beside his ancestors, keeping the circle of life unbroken. During the dry season, a new leader rose to power, a warlord named Malak. He was a warlord who won his title through bloodshed. He was fierce in battle, ruthless in victory, and unmatched in violence. At first, the people believed he would protect them, as all leaders before him had done. But Malak did not guard Aman, he consumed it. Once he took control, Malak's greed grew like sickness. He did not protect the people of Aman, instead, he became their greatest enemy. He sent his soldiers to seize the most fertile farms and the richest mines, claiming them for himself. He treated the people like cattle, stole the property of the hardworking, and laid his hands on the wives of the innocent. In his great stone palace, he forced young women into his service, treating them with a darkness that no man should endure. It was during this time that Malak's attention turned to Kondi. Not to his wealth, and not to his many lands, but to the one place Kondi valued above all else, his ancestral land. Rumors had reached the warlord's ears that deep beneath that sacred red soil lay the stones of heaven, the rarest diamonds in all of Aman. To Malak, the graves of Kondi's ancestors were nothing but dirt hiding a fortune. Kondi, sensing the coming storm, went to the palace. He offered Malak his vast cattle herds and his other fertile lands, pleading for the warlord to leave the sacred ground alone. But his humility only fueled Malak's rage. The warlord did not want a gift or negotiation, he wanted total surrender. When Kondi stood his ground to defend his home, he was met with the full weight of Malak's army. The hunter, brave as he was overwhelmed and bound in heavy chains. Malak, wanting to break Kondi's spirit forever, committed a crime that shook the foundations of the world. He gathered Kondi's 7 sons. One by one, before their father's eyes, they were executed. But the cruelty did not end with their deaths. Malak ordered their bodies to be thrown into the 7 ancient wells of the kingdom. In the culture of Aman, water was the holy bridge between the living and the dead. By filling the wells with the blood of the innocent, Malak did more than kill the boys, he poisoned their path to the afterlife. The spirits of the 7 sons could not cross over to rest with their ancestors. Instead, they were trapped in the dark water, restless. When it was done, Malak did not give Kondi the gift of death, for he knew death would have been a kindness. Instead, he was cast out of Aman and driven into the white desert, a land without shade or water, where only the cursed and forgotten were sent. Kondi walked into the endless sand, carrying grief heavier than any weapon. He walked for several days, until the world became nothing but white sand and burning sky. The sun followed him without mercy, and the wind erased his footprints as quickly as he made them. He should have died there, any man should have. Yet grief carried him forward when strength failed. He walked until hunger lost meaning and thirst became a distant thing. At the heart of the white desert, where no paths existed and no birds flew, Kondi found a single tree. He was surprised, as the people believed no living thing was found in the desert, no river or trees or animals either. As he came closer to the tree, he noticed that its roots clawed deep into the salt white earth, its branches dark and twisted, heavy with shadow despite the empty sky. No other life stood near it. The land around the tree was smooth, as if the desert itself refused to touch it. Exhaustion finally claimed him, and as he collapsed into the jagged shade of the tree, the desert itself began to breathe. Kondi stood up in fear, his eyes moving around searching for the threat. From the shimmering heat rose Giro, the spirit of the dry tongue. The deity stood in silent shock, gazing down at the broken hunter. Never in the age of the world had a man possessed the willpower to survive the desert and walk to this sacred, forbidden center. The spirit saw the fire of vengeance burning in Kondi's dying eyes and realized that this was not a man seeking life, but a vessel waiting to be filled with wrath. Touching the roof of the tree, Giro made water to rush, expecting Kondi to drink and satisfy his thirst, but he refused, looking away from the water. "I do not want to live," Kondi whispered, his voice cracking. "I want to be the fire that consumes Malak. I want to be the thirst that dries his blood. Give me the power to pay him back." Giro saw the darkness in Kondi's heart and found it more vast than the desert itself. Without a word, the spirit reached into the hollow heart of the tree and withdrew a handful of glowing coal. He held them before Kondi. Understanding the price of his request, Kondi opened his mouth. The hot coals were placed upon his tongue, instantly sending strong, sharp pain into his body and burning away hunger, thirst, and the need for rest. Pain tore through him, but he did not scream. As the coal dissolved into ash, a strange transition began to take place. First his flesh hardened and his breathing slowed down. He was no longer a creature of flesh and water. His veins became paths for wandering spirits. From that moment, Kondi no longer required food or water. He became a vessel for the thirsty dead, carrying their hunger so they would no longer haunt the land.
Giro then bestowed upon him the first of his two weapons. First was the Nkisi Blade. These daggers were not made of ordinary steel. Long ago, the winds of the desert had swept up the iron shackles of every slave and prisoner who had perished in the wars of the surrounding kingdoms, dragging the heavy metal to this central point. Giro had gathered these rusted chains of suffering and forged them into twin blades that could not cut the innocent. It would only open the flesh of the wicked and guilty. For the second gift, a deeper sacrifice was required. Giro touched Kondi's chest, driving him into a deep, death-like sleep that lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. While the hunter lay still, the spirit reached into Kondi's chest and removed a single rib from his left side. With divine precision, the spirit shaped the rib into a bone whistle. It was polished with ash and spirit breath, tuned to a sound no ear could escape. This bone whistle was tuned to the frequency of a guilty conscience. When blown, it produced a sound that could not be heard by the innocent, but to the offender, it sounded like the screams of their own victims. It forced the wicked to see their sins take physical shape. They would see the faces of those they had wronged and feel the exact pain they felt. Their legs would fail them, and they would be paralyzed, unable to run, move, or breath till judgment found them. When the 3 days passed, Kondi rose from his sleep. He was silent, tireless, and armed with the weight of the desert's sorrow. He turned back toward the kingdom of Aman, not as a hunter of animals, but as the inevitable end for a king. Kondi reached the borders of Aman faster than he had gotten to the desert. Standing in his path was a fortified stone outpost, manned by Malak's strongest soldiers, men who had grown fat on stolen grain and the suffering of the people. They laughed when they saw a lone, ash-colored figure approaching from the forbidden desert. The soldiers got ready to charge at him. Kondi did not slow his pace as the soldiers raised their bows to shoot arrows at him. He simply lifted the bone whistle to his lips. A low, vibrating hum rippled through the air. The soldiers did not hear a whistle. They heard the screams and cries of the people they had drowned in the wells. Each soldier was taken into a deep vision of the people they had hurt or killed. Suddenly, the ground beneath them seemed to turn into a sea of grasping hands. Paralyzed by the terrifying hallucinations of their own crimes, the men stood frozen, their eyes wide and their muscles locked in a grip of pure stone. Kondi moved through them quietly, like a shadow slipping through grass. He raised the Nkisi Blades and struck them. At once, the iron drank what it was owed. The men did not bleed. Instead, their strength drained away. Their skin tightened and dried, their bodies shrinking as the ancient metal took back the power they had stolen from others. By the time Kondi reached the gates, the outpost was silent, filled only with empty shells where cruel men stood before. Word of the fallen outpost reached the heart of Aman so quickly. Traders arriving at the great market spoke of a walking drought, a tall figure who left behind soldiers frozen in terror, their bodies curved like wooden statues. Inside the palace, Malak sat upon his throne, but the wine in his cup had turned bitter. His spies brought him terrifying reports of the incident that happened at the borders of the kingdom, and that the figure was moving with great speed to the palace. Fearful and enraged, Malak commanded his generals to send more troops to fight off the creatures, while he surrounded himself with 100 of his most brutal warriors, promising a mountain of gold to the man who brought him the head of the ghost of the White Desert. But as the orders were shouted and the men were about to leave, Kondi walked through the palace gates, and the air turned to ash. Malak's guards rushed forward with spears, but Kondi blew the bone whistle. The sound struck them like a physical blow. The warriors dropped their weapons, clutching their heads as they saw the faces of those they had murdered rising from the stone floor. They stood paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Kondi moved past the frozen men and entered the throne room. Malak stood trembling, his hands shaking as he drew a golden sword. Kondi did not rush. He moved with the steady weight of a mountain. Every step he took caused the gold on the walls to turn black and crumble. Malak swung his blade, but the Nkisi Blades caught it. The iron of the blades was stronger than the gold of a king. With a single strike, Kondi shattered Malak's sword into dust. He then drove the blades into the stone at Malak's feet. The iron began to drink the moisture from the room, turning the air dry and toxic. The warlord fell to his knees, his skin tightening and his voice failing. He looked into Kondi's eyes of salt and saw the 7 wells of his victims. Without a word, Kondi placed his hand on Malak's chest. The heat of the desert surged through the warlord, turning his blood to sand. Malak did not die quickly. He became a statue of salt, a permanent monument to his own greed. With the Nkisi Blades, he swung at the warlord's frozen statue and shattered it. Then he took his ashes and walked slowly towards the ancient wells of the kingdom. He splashed his ashes there, one by one. With Malak gone, the heavy cloud of fear that had choked the people of Aman finally lifted. The gold-plated walls of the palace continued to crumble, falling away to reveal the simple, honest stone beneath. The people did not look for a new warlord. Instead, they returned to the land. They reopened the ancestral wells, clearing the stones and salt until the water ran clear and sweet once more. The spirits of the 7 sons were finally at peace, their screams fading into the gentle ripple of the desert wind. Kondi did not stay to be thanked or crowned. He belonged to the heat and the silence now. He became the Nkulu, the echo of blood. He vanished back into the white desert, but he never truly left. It is said that when a leader grows too greedy, or when a hostile force takes what does not belong to them, a cold wind blows from the waste. The faint, haunting hum of a bone whistle begins to vibrate in the floorboards of the wicked, a warning that the hunter has picked up a new trail. He became a legend whispered to children to keep them away from evil, and a shadow feared by men to keep them honest. For in the heart of the desert, justice does not sleep, it waits. And so, long before modern stories created characters like the Punisher, a figure had already walked the earth, driven by the fire of revenge, yet bringing a lasting peace by ending the reign of evil.